you guys today? Okay, it's Wednesday. It is Wednesday the 21st, May 21st. Happy Wednesday to everyone. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. You know, your girl Sunshine here has been covering the Diddy trial. And yeah, so we're on trial day 8, and I just wanted to go over, what happened in court today. They wrapped it up pretty quick. I wrapped it up around 3-ish today, and I was able to get the scoop and find out what happened in the courtroom. Okay, so we're going to talk about it. And I got to put my glasses on because the girl can't see, but let's get into it. So they had a couple witnesses today. Court didn't move as smoothly as it normally moves, and I believe it's been like that because what's up, Chris? I believe it's been like that because they're trying to. The defense seems like they're really just trying to hold up stuff. They keep coming up with reasons why they don't want people to be on the stand and testify. And it's just like, let the people give their testimony and move on about their day. I saw a lot of reports today. People were saying that today was like a big win for Diddy. And I mean, you can call it what you want to call it. I mean, most of that conversation is geared towards Dawn Hughes. She's a forensic psychologist, and she was pretty much just giving her educated opinion, or her educated. She was educating the courtroom, I would say, about why people stay in domestic violence situations. Or I'm not sure. Can I say that word, DV? What's up, DB Darks? What's up, Jaden? How are you guys? Make sure you guys come in and give me a thumbs up. So so she pretty much was just giving her professional opinion about how people being in a domestic violence relationship would interact with people, and how hard it would be to get them to leave a situation where they're being abused. Like, I'm pretty sure most people know someone, if it wasn't you yourself going through it, but I'm pretty sure most people know someone who has been in an abusive relationship before, and they know they didn't get out of those relationships real quick. Now, Cassie and Diddy's relationship wasn't like it obviously it was some type of relationship. But anyway, yeah, so we're gonna get into what happened today. Chris, like, people being weird, you can go ahead and just block them because I don't need that. It's not even necessary. But make sure you guys give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel here, and I'm going to go over the information from the trial. Let's get into it. So today, Gerard Gannon was on the stand. He started out on the stand today first. Gerard Gannon, he is a Homeland Security ex SCX Raffican specialist. So he was the one who I believe set up the raid for Diddy's Miami home. And so they have him on trial because they want to know what he found in his opinion. What's up, Allie Smith? So Gerard Cannon is back on the stand. The government asks, what's this? He said 3 cell phones in one of the boots that he found in Diddy's closet. And the boots were actually like, excuse me, like rain boots. They were the big, tall rain boots. The government displayed the Gucci bag for the jury. They showed the Gucci bag, and they zoomed in on paragraph 5. A white plastic bottle. It contained liquid residue of liquid meth and liquid MDMA. Okay. And they found pills showing President Obama's face on it, like an imprint of President Obama's face, and also pills that showed had an imprint of the Tesla symbol. So if you don't know, I posted that early this morning, and you could go check back on my channel. It's one of my shorts, I believe, but I posted a picture of what those pills probably look like, because obviously I didn't know those pills have been floating around for a while now. So I'm not sure. I've heard of like luxury drugs, or I'm sorry, luxury rugs before, and I wonder if that's what that was. If that's luxury rugs that, has Obama face. Now, I'm not a pill popper. I don't take any pills. So I don't know if this is like a normal thing. I'm pretty sure it's not. But it was definitely interesting to know that Diddy not only meets and talks with Obama on a personal basis, but he also takes prescription pills that has his face on it. So that's very weird. But let's see here. So in those pills, or I'm sorry, in the pill that had the Tesla imprint on it, the active ingredient was Xanax, it says. There was $100 bill that had cocoa residue on it. Mr. Cannon, what is this? The government asked. He said a dark wood box with the word puffy on the top. The government asks, how do you know this is Astroglide and baby oil? Is this baby oil? So I didn't get the answer to that question. And of course, a lot of us were wondering, like, with those 1,000 bottles of baby oil they found at that one house. And I don't believe that was the Miami house that they found the 1,000 bottles of baby oil. But this baby oil and the Astroglide was found in a closet. It was like 25 bottles of one and 30 bottles of the other. But I didn't get the answer to that. So I'm thinking they did test the baby oil and Astroglide. So it's probably going to be real consistent with what Cassie said, and that the Astroglide and baby oil did not have any liquid rugs in it. Rugs with a D. um, let's see here. The government asked any other cell phones found, and Mr. Gannon said yes. The government asked a bottle of eye drops was tested positive for MDMA. So now, even though that baby oil and the Astroglide did not show any signs, did not test positive for any types of rugs with the D, he had eye drop, the little eye drop things, eye drops, the little bottle of eye drops, and that did test positive for MDMA. So he is, switching some stuff out, and I'm trying to figure out how he was able to get anything in those little eye drop bottles, because they're so little and the hole is real little, also. But they didn't go into much detail about that. This was all found in Diddy's room and his closet. It was a hallway that was leading to his bedroom, and then in the bathroom. And this again was at the Miami house. So the government asks, still showing pictures, was a pow pow found in the suitcase? And you know what a pow pow is. And Mr. Cannon said, yes, a 45. The government asked, hold the bullets up for the jury to see. So the government wanted to make sure today that the jury saw all the pieces of evidence. They were showing the jury all the pills, all the little baggies with the pink substance in it. They even spread out the $100 bill to show the $100 bill that also was next to like some cocoa, and they showed like the gun pieces, or I'm sorry, the pow pow pieces. I'm not even getting monetized. Can I say this right now? So, because I keep catching myself up, but I don't want to see it. But let's see here. So yeah, they were showing the jury everything. The government said no further questions. The defense came on and they said the day of the search, you knew Diddy was this Tinny Geragos. Okay, Tinny Geragos. She started off interviewing all the people who testified today, and of course, she is on Diddy's legal team. She said Diddy was leaving the country with his twin daughters, and the government said objection sidebar. So today was heavy for the sidebars. Like I said, they kept going back and forth about evidence and not wanting to ask the witnesses certain questions and stuff. It was pretty much the defense didn't want certain people to take the stand and say certain things. It was a big mess today. So they spent a lot of time wasting time because the last witness on that was on trial today, which was the executive assistant, he ended up getting immunity today. The judge granted him immunity today. So, yeah, it was a lot going on today, but they had a whole bunch of sidebar activity going on, and I believe it pushed the court back because the government ended up saying that they still needed 20 more minutes for the last witness that they interviewed today. So tomorrow's going to be very interesting. So let's see here. So they did a sidebar. They came back and the defense was questioning. He says, in planning the search, you knew none of the targets would be there. The government said, objection, objection. The judge said, overruled. Kennan said the plan was to have him not there, but we had contingencies. So Tenny Garagos, which is Diddy's defense, she said, what type of vehicles did you see? Gannon said armored vehicles, a boat by land and sea. Tenny asks, is that a common practice to have a boat on the land and sea? Um, Gannon said, so it could be. Tenny said, what about having 80 to 90 agents there? Gannon said, not all at the same time. So he's saying that all they had 80 to 90 agents that were there going through the house, checking everything out, but they weren't all there at the same time. So I guess they probably was there for a long period of time, and some people probably came in and left. So I'm not sure, but 80 to 90 people. Gannon did testify yesterday that the reason why they had so many people is because the house was 20,000 square feet. So they needed to have a good amount of people searching the area at one time, or searching the area before anybody could come back in the house. So Teeny said, you found 6 people in there and you kept them in handcuffs for hours. So I guess even though Diddy wasn't at this Miami residence, he still had people there. They pretty much were employees, so I'm not sure what their positions were, but they were employees. None of them had any substance or rugs or pow-pows on them, or were involved in anything criminal. No one got arrested. Gannon did say that no, we didn't have them in handcuffs for hours. We put them all in handcuffs when we first got there just to make sure we had a control on everything. And then one person we had some pushback with, and that person had to stay in handcuffs for a longer time period. Let's see here. So then Tenny said there was a music studio in the guest house, right? He said, yes, ma'am. Tenny said, move to admit it was reported that Diddy had his head in his hand. Oh, okay. So Tenny said, move to admit it. So I guess she wanted to move some evidence, but she was asking the court, asking the judge, okay, I want to move to admit this evidence into like the I guess where they keep the evidence and everything. So she asked to do that, and then it was reported that during this conversation right here, Diddy was sitting in court like this with his head down. So he's probably just like, oh my goodness, can we just be done with this? But I know he doesn't want this to end, because if it ends quickly, it's not going to go good. Hell, when it does end, it's not going to be good for him. Um, what else? What else? Okay, so then the defense and Gannon were showing pictures and evidence to the jury the whole time. So Tenny said the pow pow was wrapped in a towel. It didn't look like it. It didn't look how you displayed it. So I guess when Teeny was saying that admit this into evidence, I guess she wanted it to be time stamped that she was admitting this item into evidence for the jury to see, and she was showing a picture of the pow pows being wrapped in a towel, but that's not how they when they found them, they weren't wrapped in a towel. So I guess she's trying to, put a little salt in the game there to make it seem like, they're showing evidence that wasn't they're showing evidence that that's not how the evidence looked when they found it, because of course they showed the pow pow piece, because remember a lot of the pow pow pieces were like broken down, but one of the pieces was broken down and wrapped in a towel, and that's not how originally they saw the piece. So I'm not sure why it ended up being in a towel. Maybe so they wouldn't put fingerprints on it. Maybe they didn't have any plastic bags or gloves. What's up, Wade? What's going on? Thank you guys for joining my live here. Again, I'm going over the Diddy trial for today. This is day 8 of the trial. So make sure you guys leave me a comment. Well, let's talk about it in the comment section. Please be respectful, because I will block you and get rid of you, because it's just unnecessary to do anything other than that. So make sure you guys subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. Yes, I would appreciate that. So let's see here. So Teeny said, did you find any photos of Diddy with firearms? And Gannon said, we did not. Teeny said, do you agree that the metal firearms is easier to get fingerprints than maybe another device? Gannon said, I can't say if it's easier, but it can be done. Can you get fingerprints off firearms easier than it's inside? Easier if it's easier than when it's outside. So she's pretty much asking if a firearm was in the house, can you pretty much get a fingerprint, versus if it was outside in the weather, would you be able to find fingerprints? So Teeny Garagos is trying to figure out, okay, so these firearms you found, did you get any fingerprints off them? Like, how do you know they're actually Diddy's on? Of course, right? But they're all in Diddy house. So it's real crazy. Like, so he's holding somebody else's firearms in his house. But let's see here. Gannon said, I think so. I think it's easier to get the fingerprints if the if the firearm was in the house versus outside. Tenny said, you have Diddy's DNA, right? And Gannon says, I don't know. When he was arrested, the government took DNA. Gannon said, I don't know. Tenny said, hold up the Gucci bag. So she wanted Gannon to hold up the Gucci bag to the jury. And Tenny said, the rugs were in the bag and in the wooden box with the puffy on it, right? And he said, yes. Tenny asked, Your Honor, I'm going to introduce a sealed exhibit with the help of IT, if I may approach the witness. So the judge said, yes, that's fine. So I told y'all they've been doing a lot of sidebars and not letting us know what's the outcome or why they're doing sidebars. Also, Teeny Gergos showed the witness only, which is Garrod Gannon, the Homeland Security officer. She showed him a sealed item that nobody else could see, not even the jury. So they do stuff like this in the trial. I'm not sure why, because it's not going to help the jury, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not a lawyer at the same time, so I don't understand. This would be a good time to like interview a lawyer to find out why they do certain things they do in the courtroom. But let's see here. So the judge said yes. So they asked, so the judge, so the government obviously the government, the judge and the defense knew what was going on, because the government then said, please turn off the screens. So they didn't want the jury to see, they didn't want the people in the courtroom to see. They didn't want anyone to see what the defense had to show, but the Homeland Security officer. So Teeny said, please don't say the names of the people in the photo other than my client's name. Don't talk about it. Then the government asks, may we confront with counsel, conference with counsel? So then here go the government. They were like, no problem, Wade. Yes. Well, they don't have, Cassie only did those couple of days of testimony, so they're pretty much done with Cassie. Diddy's team. That's crazy that you brought that up, Wade, because this morning, Diddy's team did request from the judge to bring Cassie back into the courtroom to ask more questions later on in the trial, and the judge said we'll talk about that when we get to that. So the defense, Diddy's defense team, is asking for Cassie to come back in the courtroom and answer some more questions. And the judge is like, I don't want to bother her, but we'll see how it goes. Who's on the Mann Act? I don't even know what the Mann Act is, I'm gonna be honest. But let's see here. So now the government wanted to do a conference on the side. The judge said you may, and then Tenny says, Agent Gannon, you live in Florida, don't you? Don't, and he said yes. She said, doesn't many people in Florida have pow pows in their home? The government said, objection, objection, objection. The judge said, rephrase. Teeny said, do you have pow pows in your home? And Gannon said, yes. And Teeny said, no further questions. The judge said, next government witness. So that was real crazy, but because he is an officer, of course he's going to have guns in his home because he's an officer. So to make it seem like everyone in Florida has a gun, I'm sorry, a pow pow or a firearm. That's what I'm saying, a firearm. Like I said, this channel isn't even being monetized, so I'm not sure if I can say it or what. They're not going to demonetize it, so I don't know. They could tell me to take it down, and I don't want to do all this work for nothing. But anyway, so the government calls the next witness, and the government calls Dr.Dawn Hughes. They ask her, what is your profession? She says, a clinic forensic psychologist. I treated people who were in World War II, which was such an honor. So again, this is Miss Hughes, Dawn Hughes. A lot of people were talking about her today. I heard a whole bunch of noise going on about Dawn Hughes because she pretty much was coming to give her educated opinion and educate the jury about how people in domestic violence relationships act when they're in those types of relationships. But the defense gave her a very hard time. And come to find out, Dawn Hughes actually worked in another case with which one? Brian Steele. Now, Brian Steele is another one of Diddy's attorneys. You know, he has many. So, Dawn Hughes, and Brian Steele actually worked together before. So, I feel like they knew a little bit of history about her. So, that's probably why they were giving her a very hard time. Now, I'm not sure if anyone else has mentioned that. I'm pretty sure everyone on here has talked about this madness here that's been going on today with Dawn Hughes, because the defense got on her real hard, but it's probably because they already worked with her before. And just to give some background about her, okay, let's see here. So she has been used a lot by the courtrooms for the defense and the prosecution. Let's see here. She worked on a lot of cases, including Harvey Weinstein's case. She worked on the Nexium case, Johnny Depp case, and the R. Kelly case. So that tells you a little bit about Miss Dawn Hughes right there. Okay. So her testimony pretty much is supposed to explain why someone would stay in an abusive relationship. So the government asked, how many times have you testified in a courtroom? And she said about 60 to 65 times. And they asked, and she said also in SD, I don't know if that's like South New York, East New York, I don't know, SDNY, ENDY, Northern District, also New Jersey, Philadelphia, Connecticut, VA, Virginia. The government asked Hughes, what do you anticipate covering? And she said, why victims stay in DV relationships. The government asked, have you been retained by the government? And she said, yes, she has. They asked, what's your hourly rate? Y'all get this now. Check this out. She said her hourly rate is $600. But if she did a full day in court, it would be $6,000. Okay. So this woman is definitely about her paper. And like I said, she worked on a lot of recent cases here, a lot of recent trials. So she is definitely making her money. And if you look up Dawn Hughes, Dr. Dawn Hughes, put some respect on her name, okay? She has done a lot of interviews, like on CNN, I believe I saw, Fox News. So she's like very well known and very paid. She's getting that paper out here, okay? Let's see here. The government asks, why do victims stay in a DV relationship? She says there are psychological bonds and the psychological consequences of the abuse. What are the levels of fear? It ranges from physical violence to butterfly violence. Um, it doesn't have to happen all at the same time. The government asks, what is psychological violence? She says intimidation, throwing things, telling people what to do, what they can do, where they can go. The defense says, objection, objection. The judge said, hold on. I'm going to strike that last answer. So then the government said, what can be the role of sexual abuse? And Ms. Hughes said it puts victims in a significant psychological fear. Why does it prevent leaving? And Ms. Hughes said shame, degradation. They don't want to think about it. What is emotional abuse? And she said putting down our partner's feelings like feeling like a piece of crap. So putting people down and making them feel like a piece of crap. The government asked, what about financial dependence? And she said the abusers control or harass the person by using like housing or transportation or by taking their laptop. So when she said by taking their laptop, of course it's like it gets personal then, because of course she was supposed to just be telling like a, I don't even know why she said that part, taking their laptop. She should have said like taking something from them or taking their items or something. But she said like taking their laptop, which is very particular in this case here. And she just supposed to be given a general general answer. So the defense said objection, objection. The judge said sustain. The government asks, "Are you familiar with love bombing?" She says that's the honeymoon phase. The abuser showers the per. She said the abuser showers her with gifts and affection to get her back. So she's kind of, when she's answering her questions, she's saying she, as if she's talking about Cassie and Diddy's situation, but really she should just be saying like keeping it real general. So of course the defense was like they was not having it. They had a lot of problems with how she was answering the questions because they felt like, she was making the jury feel like that she was talking exactly about Cassie. Let's see here. Does the attempt to leave happen over time? She said yes. It takes multiple attempts, though. Which is the most common coping mechanism? The government asks. She says trying to work it out because of the trauma bond. You don't want to lose your partner. And then the government asks, what is minimization? She said the victim says maybe they had a bad day, trying to make it seem like, oh, they hit me or they're abusing me, giving excuses pretty much. Let's see here. It's a way to stay in a relationship, but it increases their risk. It's not a long-term strategy. It gets from one um it goes from one assault episode to the next. Then they ask, what about the power relation? A person can have power as a principal, like a principal of a school. The victim asks, who is going to believe me? So then the victim starts doubting themselves. So, and then they don't want to tell anybody they're being abused or, either physically or mentally, emotionally, however. What's up, Braden? Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up if you're not already subscribed. I'll appreciate it. Again, I'm going over the Diddy Trial, day 8. You already know I got my notes and I'm reading what happened in the courtroom today. Okay, thank you so much, Braden. I appreciate it. So then the government asks, when does the victim finally speak up? She said in a safe environment or after psychological help. So this was around like 11:30 a.m. today. The government asks, what type of language do victims use when they first speak of it? She says they minimize it. They are they piece it. they can add it in pieces. So like if you speak to someone who is probably in an abusive relationship and you ask them, so how's your relationship going? And they say, oh, it's okay. And then like later on, like say next week or next month, you say, how's your relationship going? I ain't heard from you in a while. You be missing, and then they say, I don't know. We're not doing too good, but I'm hopeful that we're going to do better. They tell just a little bits and pieces at a time, pretty much give you hints, the victims do, to let you know they're in something. So she's just explaining how victims act in abusive, in DV relationships, pretty much. That's what her job is today. They remember the chipping paint on the ceiling, the smell of alcohol, the penetrator's breath. So then the defense asks for a sidebar again, and then they cross over and the defense starts asking questions. So, like I said, the defense really didn't like Dawn Hughes' testimony today because they felt like she was pretty much trying to say this is Diddy and Cassie's relationship versus giving just like a general versus giving general information on how DV situations happen. So they had a lot of sidebars during her testimony here. So then Jonathan Bach, he is on the defense team. If you don't know, he is one of Jonathan Bach just joined Diddy's team yesterday, his team of attorneys yesterday, and today he's already on the stand asking questions. Now, if you don't know, Jonathan Bach, most of his work or his last work, I would say, he is like a death row lawyer. So for people who are who are facing death row, he is that type of lawyer. That's the type of lawyer you would call. You would call him. And he just worked, I believe his last case he won. I don't remember the person's name or anything, but the his client was in prison for 17 years and they were facing death row and he was able to get him off. So you can see why Diddy paying the money he paying for this guy here, okay? So, and Jonathan didn't play today, okay? He was now, I wasn't in the court, but from the way everything is sounding, he did not play with this witness here. But he also knew that Dawn Hughes, who's testifying, also worked with Brian Steele, which is one of Diddy's other lawyers. So he already knew how to finagle her or probably try to rattle her up a little bit because, somebody close to him already worked with her. So I believe they just wanted to give this lady a hard time today. But the defense asks, you observed them closely, their cognitive styles, just talking in general. And she said, yes, people don't fit into boxes, right? He asked. She says, there are categories, but you have to listen to particular individuals, right? And she said, I'm not divorced from my training. I guess she's saying, I know exactly what I'm doing. What are you talking about? Trying to question him, like, what are you doing? You trying to catch me up in a lie or something? Because this the thing, did even if Don Hughes did interview Cassie and evaluated Cassie and Diddy, she still wouldn't be able to tell their information because it's privileged information. It's just like if you go to the doctor, your doctor can't come on trial and tell everyone in the courtroom, your medical record or what you was going through, especially without your permission. So I think the defense was just trying to make it clear that, he's going to get to the part that you didn't interview Cassie or Diddy, right? But he just wanted to make that clear that, this isn't anything personal to Cassie. She's just giving general information. But like I said, they were giving her a very hard time today. Let's see here. He says, but you have to listen to particular individuals, right? She says, I'm not divorced from my training. When you do forensic work, you want a lot of sources of information, right? She said, if it's relevant, look at police reports, witness reports, and correct. He said, you look at police reports, witness reports, and is that correct? And she said, correct. He says, you're familiar with malignant. She says, I am. Now, malignant is when people fabricate emotions and psychological symptoms, if you don't know. So he brought that up, and they stayed on that part right there, about malingering for a long time. Okay, because they had her on trial for way too long today. But yeah. So let's see here. Let's see here. She said people can fabricate. Oh no, he asked. The defense asked, people can fabricate emotional responses, correct? And she said they can. And then the judge said break. They went on break. During that break, a witness was called up. So this is what I was talking about right here. When I first started this live. So during the time they went on break, the jury left out the courtroom. Everyone pretty much was leaving out the courtroom, especially the jury. The jury had to go, and the witness had to go, for sure. But during that time, there was a witness that the defense, that the government wanted to make sure had immunity. So the government is going to call their next witness, who is George Kaplan. And he came in saying, I'm not saying anything. I'm using my Fifth Amendment right. And so the government was like, oh, okay. All right. So then the judge said, welcome. How are you? And he said, I'm good. Thank you. And the judge said, so are you ready to, have your rights read to you? And he was like, no, I'm going to utilize my Fifth Amendment right. And so the judge said, so you're not going to say anything? And he's like, no, because I don't want to get in anything criminal. So then the government asked the judge, can we go ahead and give him immunity? And the judge was like, well, has he written over the immunity agreement? And she was like, no. And he was like, okay, well, give him the agreement first so he could read it over, and then I'll sign it. So they want to make sure they get George Clapman's testimony, but George Clapman was too concerned about him being involved in some criminal activity, and he probably know that all the other witnesses who have been on that stand have lawyers. Now I don't know if he have a lawyer, but he wanted to make sure he had immunity, so no matter what he said, as long as it's the truth, he wouldn't get in trouble. So I thought that was real smart there. Whether you have a lawyer or not, definitely want to see about getting an immunity. But if they catch you in a lie, you can get caught up in some criminal mess for real. So yeah. So they went over that. The guy did end up signing the immunity agreement. The judge signed off on it, and then after the break was over, they went right back to Dawn Hughes, and then they got to George Kaplan. All right, so let's see here. So I'm gonna just read over that. I know I pretty much summarized it, but let's see. So the judge said break. They went to break. During the break, a witness was called, George Kaplan, who says he invokes his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. The judge Subramanian asks, welcome. The government asked Kaplan, did you receive a subpoena? He said yes. He asked, do you intend not to answer on Fifth Amendment grounds? Kaplan said yes. The government asked the judge to please sign the immunity order. The judge asked him to read it. If he read it, he said no. The judge says he needs to read it first. So they're definitely doing things by the book here. So he read it. The government came back and says he read it. The judge said, I will sign it. I will sign the immunity order. Then the government presented it to the judge. And then I asked, what would they go over? Like I wasn't going to know or find out. So then the jury comes back in and they continue questioning Dawn Hughes. So the defense start questioning Dawn Hughes again. Of course, they just continued. So they asked, you are with the American Psychological Association, on which it says you should only render an opinion. She said, they said after an examination, right? And where? She says, this is a different role. You have not gathered information about this case, right? The defense asks. She says, I am not rendering an opinion on an individual. The defense asks, there is someone named Cassie, but you don't know what she said, right? And Miss Hughes said, no. You testified across the river in ED, New York, right? She says, right. He says, you say, and you said the same thing, even though the cases are different. She says, it's to help the jurors understand. The defense asks, but it's their job to consider their case, right? The defense, you don't publish data on patients you have evaluated, do you? She said, no, it's confidential. So I can't cross check your experience, the basis of what you are saying, correct? So I guess the defense, like I said, this is Jonathan Bach. So he came in today real heavy and very strong. So he came in like, I've been doing this for a long time. We gonna shut her all the way down. So he pretty much is saying like, well, you didn't interview Cassie, so how you gonna tell us this information, and then you say this information in all the cases you're doing, which makes sense because it's the same information. Like, what is you talking about? And I was shocked that they didn't go into the government didn't even go into, details, further details, and acts like, okay, this is like the basic information of a person who's in a domestic relationship would go through, right? And they didn't really make that clear. It just seemed like they wanted to harass this lady today. And this is the last person you need to harass because, to be honest, her testimony didn't even need to be had today. Like, and Diddy's still gonna lose. I mean, just look at the evidence. It's not looking good for your boy. Okay, but anyway, let's get back to it. So the defense asks, but it's their job to consider their case, right? I'm sorry. She said, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. So the defense says, you don't publish data on the patients you have evaluated, do you? She said, no, it's confidential. What's up, Sales Basha? What's up? What's up? So I can't cross-check your experience, the basis of what you are saying, correct? The defense asks, people might go to civil lawyers to make a little money, right? The government said, objection. What's up, William? I'm going over the Diddy case, the Diddy trial for today, day 8, okay? At the time, Dawn Hughes was being interviewed by the defense team. The judge said, let's move on, because they just spent a whole lot of time just trying to like make her not seem credible because she didn't actually talk to Cassie. But the information is pretty much general. So it's like they were looking for a win, however they could get a win. Like I'm pretty sure they said a win is a win today. Okay, yes, make sure you guys give me a thumbs up. I really would appreciate it. So let's see here. So in a civil litigation, you might look for malingering, right? And again, malingering is emotional and psychological, faking emotional and psychological symptoms. What's up, Kel? Kel come in saying sup. You gave a webinar about giving expert witness testimony, right? She says yes for a battered woman. The defense asks, he shows Hughes a picture. Then they ask for another sidebar. So I told you they've been doing a lot of sidebars here. And then during the time they did the sidebar, I actually found out that Mark Agnifilo, which is Diddy's, I guess he's not his main attorney, but you know, everybody knows Mark Agnifilo. But he did a quick little interview this morning with Fox News, and he said it's a long trial, and we're just getting started. We have a lot of witnesses to go through. We have a lot of weeks to go. And as the summer gets hotter, I'm sure the trial would get hotter, get just as hot. Um, I feel like Diddy probably made him go out there and say something to the public, give a statement, because it has been a while that Mark Agnifilo has said something to the public. Let's see here. So of course they doing the sidebar here. Let's see here. So legally, Dawn Hughes wouldn't be able to share what information she knew about any client she had personally, because that's client doctor privilege. But she just came to give her educated advice and just some general information. But of course, the defense was on her heart today, and they kept calling for a sidebar. Let's see here. And I felt like they wanted to hold up the court today, because they did a whole lot of that, holding up the court when Dawn was on trial. And it seemed like her testimony could have went by way faster than it actually did. Let's see here. Also, the defense was trying to tell the judge that they feel like Dawn Hughes would be biased towards women because she did that webinar for battered and abused women. Let's see here. Okay, and so then they come back from the sidebar. Then the defense asks, does this document refresh your recollection? Hughes said, let me take a look at it closely. And she says, yes, the fourth part is about navigating cross-examination, right? She said, yes, they asked, most of your income comes from court-related work, right? She says, no, maybe half. They said you raised your rate to $600. So now they just lowballing. At this point right here, I told you that the defense was on the forensic psychologist very heavy. They had nothing else to go on. So now they wanted to start talking about how much money she make. So it's real weird that the government, because this is the government's witness, they paid Dawn Hughes to come and speak today to give a general opinion about people in a domestic situation. So it's crazy that the defense wanted to, use that part to try to, I don't know what they were trying to do, make her look like a money hungry person or something, which, I mean, we really could put the defense on trial and ask them about the fees they're charging for their services, because lawyers get paid a whole lot of money. And I know Diddy is paying reportedly like $17 million for his attorneys, his whole team that he has. So it could be more than that, could be less than that. But lawyers get paid a whole lot of money also. What's this talking about? All right, let's see here. So again, I'm going over the Diddy trial today. Day 8 of the Diddy's trial. Dawn Hughes is she's testifying. The government called her as their witness. It's been the same for some time, she said. She said her her retainer has not changed. It's been the same for some time. And but the defense is like, you raised it though, didn't you? And she said, just to commemorate with others. So commensurate with others. So she's saying, I've raised it a while ago, but that's just to keep up with, everyone else raised their prices. So, that's what people do. They asked, you've been retained hundreds of times, but you've never come to court and testified in defense of a man accused of a sex crime. She said, that's correct. I don't evaluate offenders. Um, the defense said, you met with the prosecution 6 times to prepare your testimony, right? She says, correct. They said, can we have a sidebar? So here we go with another sidebar, y'all. This is like what, the fourth, fifth, sixth sidebar they've had. They keep it going with these sidebars. The judge did tell them, we can have a sidebar. The defense comes back and they said, did you discuss the topics with the prosecution? With all due respect, um, um, Hughes said, it mostly was me educating them. But you know nothing about this case. Were you advising them on how to prevent evidence in domestic violence cases? Didn't you help them write briefs? So they asking her a couple of questions back to back. She didn't even get a chance to answer it. Um, so they're saying she helped the government write a couple of briefs up. Let's see here. Okay, so then the government asks for a sidebar. So here we go. The government asks for yet another sidebar so they could go and talk, do some whispering, and then come back and question her again. So the judge said, this gonna have to be a short one. So the judge was like irritated at this point. He was like, okay, it's too much. We're gonna have to make this very short. Well, I mean, just give me a moment, William. I mean, you want me to let you tell the story? So, so let's see here. So the government come back and they cross-examine Dawn Hughes and they said, you reviewed some filing to the court in this case that was related to the subject, giving your expert testimony, right? She says, correct. The government asks, we redacted, right? And Hughes said, you did. You are a board certified forensic psychologist, right? She says, yes. And he asks, the government asks, how many, the government asks, what? Oh, how many board certified psychologists are in the state of New York? And Miss Hughes said about 40. So then they recross again. The defense comes back and let's see here. And they ask, your defense work is almost for victims of domestic violence, right? She says, I'm not sure that's true. And they ask, you work with Brian Steele. And I told y'all that already. Brian Steele is one of Diddy's current attorneys. So that's weird. They're giving her such a hard time. She worked with Brian Steele, but now she's working with the prosecution in this case right here. And just to make it clear, she didn't work with Brian Steele during Diddy's case. It was with another case. And Brian Steele was defending a woman charged with reacting to domestic violence, right? She says yes. The government then called for George Kaplan. So they finally got Dawn Hughes off the stand, which was good because that was just long and boring and drawn out. And it was just a hot mess during that time right there. So then the government calls George Kaplan. And they asked, what did you do? He says, I carried his bags. I made sure things were there when he wanted them. As he trusted me, he had me around more. I set up hotel rooms. They asked him, how many hours did you work a week? He said 80 to 100. They asked, how much did you get paid? He said $125,000 to start that first year. They asked, what did you do in the morning? He said, make sure everything was in the bathroom, make sure the breakfast was cooked. He was working on a mixtape, so we worked late. Kaplan started Kaplan started at Combs Enterprises in 2013. He was an executive assistant to the chief operating officer, and then 10 months later, he was promoted to Diddy's executive assistant. He reported to Christina Coram, which is KK, Diddy's former chief of staff, who Kaplan said she ran his life. Diddy hired a more polished security team, a licensed group in 2025. So when he hired Kaplan, I guess he was in the process of trying to get rid of some of his security team and make it a whole lot better. He said, Kaplan said that Diddy wanted to get a more professional team. So then 10 months later, he ended up getting a raise. So the government asks, did he threaten you? He said he did. He threatened my job on a monthly basis. He'd say it was only to be surrounded. He only wanted to be surrounded by the best people. So he probably would threaten them and then be like, I'm only hiring the best people, being real cocky and stuff like that. Let's see here. Okay, some weirdos in the house. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel here and give me a thumbs up. Again, I'm going over everything that happened in the Diddy trial today in the courtroom. So if you like to hear it go. Okay. Let's see here. He was threatened. Let's see here. So Kaplan explained one time Diddy asked him to go get 1 liter bottle of water, and he brought back 2 half liters, and Diddy said no. I don't like this. You got to do better. I don't know why he had to tell that. That seems a little petty. The government asked, how did you travel? He said on his jet, or going in advance on his jet to make sure everything was set up. They asked, how did you set up the hotel rooms? He said, there was a bag. I unpacked it. Clothes, candles, Astroglide, baby oil. The government asked, who brought this? He says, often me. So what we found out yesterday from the personal assistance testimony, that Diddy wanted, he would pay his employers back. So he would get them to buy like rugs with the D, condoms, Astroglide, baby oil, things of that nature in large amounts, but he would pay them in cash. So he didn't want no record of stuff like that being purchased, but other items, like he would give them a card or something to make the payments with. So the government asked, in what cities did you set up rooms? He said in LA, New York, Miami, Atlanta. He even named some of them. He said the Mr. C, Bel Air, the Intercontinental in New York, the Trump Towers, by Columbus Circle. In Miami, the SLS. I mean, he went into great detail, okay, about where he worked. How was it booked? He said under the name Frank Black, which was based on Biggie's name, because Biggie's name was Frank White. He said this in his testimony. And mind y'all, if you have been watching, he said this a number of times, or this has been said a number of times during this trial, that Diddy would go by the name Frank Black. And we know, if you're a Biggie fan, that Biggie would use the name Frank White. So I bet Diddy probably gave Biggie that name to use, but I don't know. Anyway, he said, "Would you clean up the rooms?" He said, "Yes, bottles of baby oil, Gatorade, once brown crystallized powder was on the bathroom sink." The government asked, "Why did you clean up the hotel instead of the hotel staff?" He says, "It was implied to protect Diddy's image. I was keen on doing that. Sometimes Diddy was angry, other times he would be motivational. Sometimes hotels would sell photos to newspapers to shame the guests." Um, which the government asks, "Did he reach out to you from the room?" Meaning, did he call you when he was in the room? And what's this witness name? Oh, Kaplan. I forgot his name. And Kaplan said, yes, he would call me for food. He would call me for food, for clothes. Where I'm at. Food, clothes, sometimes rugs with the D, and then I would do it. And the government asked, "What rugs with the D?" And he said his dope kit, a dop kit, which is a dop kit is just like a leather bag that holds medication like pill bottles. He said the government acts illegal rugs. Agnifilio said objection to the term illegal. So the government said, "What type of rugs?" Um, Kaplan said Advil, ketamine. What would he ask for? The government asked. Kaplan said, "I picked up rugs for him, MDMA." The government asks, "Who asked Diddy in LA?" Or who did you ask? Who did you go get the rugs from? Or how did you know to get the rugs when Diddy was in LA and Miami? He said, "Diddy asked me to call a person. He would give him a number and tell him to call that person in the different states. And then he would call them. He would meet with the person. He would give them money. Of course, you're not going to give them a check or pay with a card. You don't want no trace of it. And then he would go back and give Diddy the rugs. But Diddy gave him the people to call. Um, let's see here. Let's see here. The government asks in LA, um, who would you go see? He said, "I went out and met this person in Hollywood. I gave him money. He gave me a bag. The judge said dismiss court. The judge dismissed court for the rest of the day after that." So they got into a good bit of testimony from today's witness, George Kaplan, which was the government's witness. And as y'all could tell, that was the end of court today. That was it. Now, that went a whole lot, it was a whole lot lighter information from yesterday because the defense kept holding up the court because of Dawn Hughes' testimony, which, in my opinion, was really just to start some commotion and to probably get some views and clicks on social media. Because I saw a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the defense destroyed Dawn Hughes today. They destroyed her," but she just came to give general advice. She didn't come to give any particular information based on Diddy or Cassie because she hasn't even interviewed either one of them. So she was told, of course, she knows that she's not supposed to read up on the case to find out any information about people that's on trial when she comes to court. So she's a great professional. I felt like she did a great job today. And she was trying to make it short and sweet, but the defense just needed something. Like, that was their only win today, is to say that they pretty much took down a woman who didn't even meet with Diddy or Cassie. So she was just giving general information. So make sure you guys, when you hear all that talk about, oh, the defense destroyed Dawn today. No, they didn't. Dawn didn't have any information but what you could find in a book or Google. So it was nothing she said that was directly attached to Diddy or Cassie, y'all. But the defense, the government did say they have about 20 more minutes of testimony for George Kaplan tomorrow. So tomorrow, George Kaplan to get back on the stand, and I believe Kid Cudi is going to be in court today. I mean tomorrow, but I'm not sure if everything got pushed back because of how the defense was just trying to hold up Don's testimony today. So if Kid Cudi doesn't get on trial tomorrow, he'll probably definitely get on trial Friday. But it was expected that he was going to get on trial this week. So hopefully the defense today doesn't push things back because they're trying to do that. They're trying their best to have a mistrial. They trying everything they can to get Diddy off, which makes sense. He's paying a whole lot of money for those lawyers, so he need them to make something happen for him. So I definitely understand. But I wanted to get into something else because if you don't know, Chris Brown was released from jail. Thankfully, I believe that was just like today or yesterday that he got released from jail. So what happened was he was in a situation 2 years ago in the UK where he hit someone in the head with the bottle, and they said he beat someone with a bottle. I'm not sure. Anyway, somehow he got out of the UK before they can arrest him. Then, of course, he's on tour right now. So he's on tour. He goes back to the UK, and soon as he comes in, they grab him and lock him up. So that's the charges they got him from. A bodily harm, I believe they're calling it, to someone. And he had to pay like a whole bunch of millions of dollars today. I think they said like $5 or $6 million he had to pay. He has a new song too. Well, Chris Brown music is the bomb, okay? It's the bomb diggity. All right. But yeah, so hopefully, but oh, they have him on a very, very tight leash. So they had to take his passport. So he's still on tour, but I believe it's like it's out the country, so it's not in the states. So he'll be able to go to the other states, but he's going to be heavily monitored. And if he go against the agreement that he's made with the UK, he could end up paying them over $6 million. So they're on him very heavy. Every step he makes after he finished with his concert, he has to go to this place. So they made him get like a residence, and he has to go to this residence before, after. He has to always be at this residence unless he's like actually performing and working. It sounds like what Americans would call house arrest. That's what it sounds like that he's under right now, but it's with the UK. So the UK has a very tight hold on him. They are not playing with him. He does have to go back to court in June, I believe, but yeah, they're not playing with him. He had to pay a lot of money just to get back on tour so he could make money. Okay? So, and then Sky Jackson, Sky Jackson, she had a baby by that, she was one of them Nickelodeon stars or something. Anyway, she's going through like a DV case with her baby daddy. On Mother's Day, apparently, he like pretty much beat her up while she was holding the baby. And, it's crazy that you hear this case about Diddy and Cassie and what they're going through, and it's like all these other girls, young girls, are going through the same thing. Halle Berry, Bailey, and DDG. You know, he had just assaulted her allegedly. She said he hit her, he called her names while she was holding Halo, and she had to get a restraining order against him. The Sky Jackson chick, she just got approved for a restraining order against her baby daddy. She says that he always beats her up. He punched her in the face. She said he slammed her to the ground while she had the baby. He made her hit her head on the car window. So it sounds like maybe she was riding with him or something. I'm not sure. But the court did just grant her a restraining order for her and her child to protect her, her child, and her dog, y'all. Sky Jackson, like, include my dog. He can't hurt my dog, okay? I thought that was real funny. Like, the dog, too? Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, it's a lot of DV cases going on with these young girls. Yeah, they need to sit down somewhere and stop getting these guys that's, like, they just choosing all these baby daddies versus somebody you can build with and make sure that they're the right ones for you. They just seems like they just getting a boyfriend and having babies, and it's like, but y'all celebrities. Keke Palmer, y'all know she had to go through the same thing with her baby daddy. Now she done got back with him, even though she said he was violent towards her. So I don't know. I just feel like around this time with this case that's going on right here, I just hope these young girls are listening to what's going on here and what can happen to you. To be in a domestic violence relationship like this with a guy, that is not love. That's not love. And I wanted to do a video about that. I think I'm gonna do it Saturday. So if you're interested, make sure y'all hit me up Saturday. Look out for me. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to my channel because I definitely want to get into domestic violence relationships with celebrities and just in general to talk about how, it's just not a good look. Okay, you guys, like when you in something as serious as domestic violence, that's that's not because someone love you. People don't hit you to show you that they love you. That's not how you show love. So usually when people are violent like that, it's because they have some stuff going on with them and they need to seek some help. It's not showing how much love they have for you. And I hope anyone who needed to hear that did get to hear it. But like I said, it's a lot of young girls that's celebrities that's going through that domestic violence and all. And even Cardi B, she had said that her baby daddy Offset, well, her ex-husband or husband or whatever, he had told her that he didn't want to live, that he was going to hurt her. I remember she said that he was going to hurt her. And it's like, that's not cute to say. Like, I don't know if she said that to the public so that we could fear, him hurting her or something. But don't play around with stuff like that because I've heard of stories. I've known people real close to me who lost their life from their mate because their mate was abusing them and then took them out. It was a situation that was very close to home where I knew this girl who was in this domestic violence relationship for years, for like 6 years with this guy. He was always beating her up. And then she went to her mom's house and stayed at her mom's house overnight. And the next morning, he went there to the house early that morning and he somehow got inside and he killed her and her sister. I'm sorry, deleted her and her sister because her and her sister was there and her mom wasn't there because she was at work. So the kids were in the house and he deleted both of them, her and her sister, because they probably both tried to jump on him or something. We don't know the details with that. But he left the house and left the little children there whining and crying. and they were able to get him and lock him up. But it is not cute, okay? It's a real serious thing out here. Like, this DV stuff is very serious. Do not play with it. If you going through some mess like that, I hope you would seek some assistance for yourself. You know, get some type of help. Get out of that relationship. Get away from that person as far as you can, because don't play around with situations like that. That's not cute. A person beating you or hitting you, he or she is not doing that because they love you. And it goes both ways. Men can be abused by women also, and that don't get talked about a lot. And I hate that. But it is a huge thing. And I hate to see, like, on social media, whatever, you'll see a girl like testing a guy, and then she just hit him. And then it's like, that's not a good look, because if he hit you like that, he'll be locked up in jail. 9 times out of 10, if you hitting him, nothing won't happen to her. But it goes both ways. DV goes both ways, and being in a relationship like that is not healthy at all. That's not proof that someone loves you. Please don't believe that myth. And if you're in that type of situation, please seek some help. All right. So, yeah, that was me being on my soapbox right there, because I don't want to hear any stories about someone not making it, or being deleted because they thought the person who was abusing them was in love with them. That's not love, sweetheart. That's not love at all. But thank you guys for watching my channel here, listening to the footage. I'll be back with tomorrow's footage. Hopefully Kid Cudi be on the stand tomorrow so we can get some good stuff. Today was real boring and slack. It was like, I could have went to sleep on the information I found today, but that was just because Diddy they needed a win. His defense team needed a win so bad, so they found an opportunity and they really took advantage of it. But tomorrow, hopefully, it'll be better. But whatever. Yes, you guys, thank you so much for watching again. Make sure you subscribe to my channel here. Give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. All right. And I'll be back with another one. You guys have a good evening. Peace. Peace, Chris. Thank you so much for your help. Love you too.